Hi Prep4, welcome to today's science lesson. In this video should I say, I am going to conduct the little science experiment that I would like you to be able to do at home if you are able. However, if you don't have the equipment or all of the bits and bobs you need, you can use the results of my experiment that I'm going to show you now to fill out the activity sheets later on. Okay, so you should have already looked through the PowerPoint presentation, which is looking at how liquids change into solids and vice versa, and different melting and boiling points and things like that. And you should have got on to the slide, which is asking you to help out Maya. So Maya in Prep4, we're going to help you out today. Sure, it's a birthday party for you apparently, so I hope you don't mind us borrowing your name. But Maya on our PowerPoint is wanting to make some chocolate crispy cakes for her party. She needs to be quite speedy, and she wants to find out what the best temperature is going to be to melt the chocolate so that she can make those crispy cakes as quickly as possible. So that's what we are going to try and do. You will see I have got a selection of equipment and bits and bobs in front of me here. So I'm going to go through that with you. But first of all, I'm just going to talk about the sheet here. If you're unable to print, don't worry at all. You can do all of this either in your exercise books or writing down on a piece of paper, that's fine. But if you choose a difficulty, they're slightly different, but I'm going to use the 2-star sheet as a basis to show you for this experiment. So the first box says, equipment, draw or write down all the things that you will need. So we've got those out in front of me here. You are going to need one of these, which is probably going to be the trickiest thing to find at home, a thermometer. Now we're going to use that to measure the temperature of the water in our containers. If you don't have a thermometer, you can still do the experiment, don't worry. It's just you can't write an accurate reading for the temperature. So you could just say hottest, coldest and middle, okay, or A, B, C, and then draw out a key for that. But if you do have one, that's brilliant. You will also need 3 containers, which you can see here. You could use bowls, that's absolutely fine. I've used plastic sort of Tupperware containers, so hopefully you can see through them. And I've already filled these up with water. So I have got one with the hottest water, then I have got a middle sort of one, and then a colder water. But it's not cold. I ran the warm tap and I filled it up slightly with that. These 2, I boiled a kettle, poured one in straight away. I can't actually remember which is which, to be honest, which is quite good for our experiment. And the second one, I let the water in the kettle. I just left it there for a few minutes before I've poured it in. So you will also need some little foil containers. Now, there are options for here. If you're a fan of Mr. Kipling cakes or any others are available, they come in these foil containers, which are perfect for this experiment. So if you happen to have some of those at home, that's great. I'm not actually going to use those. I've made my own, as that's what I predicted most of you will be doing. If you've just got some tin foil at home, make some little boats that your chocolate can sit in. It's quite important. We don't want the boats to sink, or we don't want any water to get in the boats, as that could have an effect on our results. So we need 3 boats, and then some chocolate as we need to melt. Now, I unfortunately didn't have a bar of dairy milk. Bars of dairy milk don't hang around very long in my household, but I have raided my Christmas tin and found these. You can see which chocolates are not very popular in the Donovan household. Dark chocolate, strawberry cream, not a fan of, but handy for this, so I'm glad I've got them. Quite important that whatever you're melting chocolate-wise, it's the same, so that your results are as fair as possible. So I've got 3 of these to melt. And finally, this isn't essential, but I am going to use a cocktail stick or a pokey stick to check whether my chocolate has melted or not, just so I'm not poking my fingers into potentially very hot water. Now, it obviously goes without saying that we're using hot water today, which you'll either need to get from the tap or a kettle. You will definitely need the help of mum or dad or an adult within the house to help you with that, as you could burn yourself. So please be really, really careful. If mum and dad are busy working, please wait for a time where they're free so they can help you with the hot water, so we don't have any accidents, as we don't want that as scientists. Right, I've also, the final piece of equipment I think I need to show you, unless I've forgotten anything, is a stopwatch, and I've just got mine here. I'm hoping that therefore you'll be able to see on the recording for when we do our timing. So that's all the equipment. Draw or write out that in that box here. We will then answer a few questions before we get going with the experiment itself. You will float the pieces of chocolate in foil tins on trays filled with different temperatures of water. How will you make sure your results are reliable? Think about what you will need to keep the same and what will change. Now, I don't want to give away the answer here. I've mentioned some of those things to you as I've gone through the equipment. The clue is there's only one thing that will change, or that should change, to make it a fair test. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. And then you've got the questions, I will measure and I will observe. So think about what you're measuring. Again, I'm not going to tell you the answers, as I'd like you to think about this yourself. What are you measuring in this experiment, and what are you observing? Have a think and write it down. Remember, this needs to be filled in before you conduct the experiment, or before you watch the results of mine anyway. Final bit for this page is, what do you predict will happen? Which temperature of water will melt the chocolate the fastest, and why do you think this will happen? So what would be really good is if you can refer to the behaviour of particles in the pieces of chocolate in your answer. There's a little clue. You've been given the solid and liquid particles. Remember, you're learning from last time, and also from the lesson presentation that you've gone through today to help you with answering that one. Now, on the second piece of paper, or if you've printed it off back to back, this is our sort of results section. So we've got a table here. If you haven't printed out, just draw this in your book or on a piece of paper. If you draw it out before you get going, it makes it much easier as the experiment goes on. So we've got 3 trays, tray 1, tray 2, tray 3, and then we've got a temperature of water and the time taken for the chocolate to melt. So I think we better get started. I am going to start with this tray. What I need to do first of all is to take the temperature of the water. So I'm going to put my thermometer in. This is where, if you don't have a thermometer, you will have to maybe ask an adult to do a bit of a touch test to see if you've got an A, B and a C, a hot to cold, and then you would just write A, B and C. So my thermometer, I'm making sure the end is in the water, is submerged in the water, not obviously touching that end. And I think that is a 25. I'm just going to put it up here. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it. There we go. Oh, it's gone down slightly. So we're going to mark that as a 24 degrees. So I'm going to put that onto my sheet, 24 degrees. Then I'm going to get my chocolate ready, place it in my little boat, and as soon as the boat is put into the water, I will click start. Now, as that's doing its job, one thing to say is you need to decide before you start at what point you're going to press stop. If you've only got tiny pieces of chocolate, for example, chocolate chips, then they're not going to take as long to melt. So you might want to melt them all. If you've got bigger pieces of chocolate, obviously they're going to take longer to melt. So you might decide as soon as you see any form of chocolate liquid, that's when you're going to click stop on your timer, even if the whole thing isn't melted. And that's what I'm going to do today so that this video isn't hours and hours long. As soon as I see liquid chocolate, I'm going to press stop on the timer. Now I'm just going to grab the camera so you can see closer up. They can see my chocolate is in its boat. I'm going to just use my cocktail pokey stick to see if there's any. No forms of anything melting there yet. Not at all. So we'll leave the timer on. That's okay. That's not a problem. And I'm going to keep an eye on that one. Pop you back there. Hopefully you don't fall down. Okay, the next one, whilst that's still going, the timer's still going, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to start my next one. You might want to do it one at a time. That's fine also. Okay, thermometer's in. And I'm going to take the reading. In fact, what I am actually going to do is just pop a little bit of kettle water in there to see if that makes a difference. I've just realised how long I've been talking for, and obviously the longer I've been talking, the more the temperature of the water will drop. So the first tray, oh, that's shooting up now. I'm not sure if you can see that. Just checking back that one. No chocolate's melted just yet. Okay, the thermometer is going up and up and up. That's good news. Okay, it seems to be coming to a halt at around the 50-degree mark, but I'll just get you to confirm that. You said, oh, it's slow. You can see it's now going down as I've taken it out of the water, but I can promise you, yeah, it's going back up again. And we're up to 50 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to try and be fancy with this timer. I'm going to take my chocolate out and I'm going to do another lap. So we've got 2 timers going on at the same time, which is good. So we can measure 2 separate parts of the experiment. I've got my boat, chocolate goes in the boat, and lap. Brilliant. We're off. Okay, so lap 2 has started, but my original timer is still on. Oh, and we can see that that has melted or started to melt already. If you can see there, that was speedy, very speedy. There's evidence of, where are we? You can see there's chocolate on my cocktail stick. That was super speedy. So I'll quickly stop that lap. So it's 35 seconds now. I think I'll take 5 seconds off. 35 seconds at 50 degrees. So 30 seconds. I think I'll take 5 seconds off because I showed you, didn't I? It's definitely melting. Now going back to my first one, we're on 3 minutes 45. Can't see any signs of any melted chocolate, which is fine. Sometimes you don't get the results you expect in an experiment. That's not a problem whatsoever. I'm just going to show you, but I think I'm going to call it a day on that one and say that it's not going to melt, which is okay, as long as we write that into our results. But what does that maybe tell you about the temperature being 24 degrees and the chocolate not melting? So in this box here, I'm just going to write chocolate didn't melt. Chocolate didn't melt, which is okay. Right, number 3. Let's just have a feel of that one. A feel of that one. Okay, I'm going to put a tiny little bit more water in there because there's not very much as it is. And then I'm going to make sure that my foil boat has nice high sides so it doesn't sink my chocolate. Okay, we can stop both of those now and reset. Let's go, chocolate number 3. Right, it's in the boat, but the first thing we need to do is, of course, measure or record the temperature of our water in the 3rd tray. Okay, it's going up, maybe not quite as high as before. We are about just over 30 degrees Celsius. So it's slowly rising. So I'll wait until I think it stops completely. So it stopped for me on 34 degrees. So I'm going to write down 34 degrees in my box. Get ready to start. This goes in you go, and start. Okay, we'll see how long it takes. Now, whilst this is doing its job, hopefully, I would like you to have a think about why we have used tin foil containers as the boats for melting our chocolate. We will be talking about this in another lesson, but you can start to think about that. Why have I chosen that? Why have I chosen to use tin foil rather than some paper, or rather than another material, so to speak? So have a think. Right, let's get another cocktail stick out. And I'm just going to move it around slightly. Aha! Evidence. So you can see, if I move you, sorry, my camera skills aren't the best. If I just turn up chocolate bottom, you can see, oopsie daisy, there is evidence of melted chocolate. So I'm going to quickly stop the timer, and it's stopped on 1 minute and 2 seconds. So 1 minute and 2 seconds. Okay, good news, all done. This ship has sunk, but that's okay because we realised it started melting before anyway. So remember, I have chosen to stop the clock when I saw the first signs of melting, the first signs that the solid chocolate had turned into a liquid. You might want to do the whole thing. Obviously, it will depend on the size of your chocolate, as I said before too. Now, once you've done that, you have got to record your results, if I come a bit closer, in a bar chart. So for this particular sheet, you need to decide what's going to go along this axis. Remember, X is across, and what's going to go on the Y axis, Y to the sky. I would suggest putting down your 3 temperature choices here, and then your time intervals on the Y-axis. Obviously, depending on your results will depend on your time intervals up here. Because we've got one that the chocolate didn't melt at all, it means we're not going to record anything. So it will just be relevant to these two for this example, if you're using my results. Then the final thing you need to do is write up your conclusion. Now, I could probably conclude on a few things about my results because I had a result where the chocolate didn't melt, so I need to add that information to my conclusion too. But can you tell Maya which temperature melts chocolate the fastest? And most importantly, we want the science behind it. This is a science lesson after all. Why was that the case? Can you think of a generalising statement to help out Maya? I also think what would be a really good idea to end the lesson, if you can, is to make some chocolate crispy cakes, because we've been talking about them a lot and they're rather delicious. So if you do happen to have any extra chocolate or some spare cereal at home, I would thoroughly recommend making some and then enjoying one tonight for working so hard today with your home learning. Okay, I hope you enjoy and good luck with the experiment.